This is Heroine Addiction, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and where the best superpower is getting 2 do-overs. I'm Isekai Sensei-Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
I'm the long-haired, glasses-wearing teacher who recognizes your talent, and I want in on it.
Be sure to find us on social media, which you can find links for on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. Today we're covering I Shall Master This Family. One of my favorites. Finally got to cover this. It's been going for a long time. 2021, I believe, was when it started. We're currently at chapter 157, which is, I think this might be the longest one we've covered so far.
Yeah, and I feel like before we get into it, I gotta mention, I'm a bit of a curmudgeon. I'm a little hard on these things, so I may say things people don't like sometimes, and I know you recently tried to share an isekai with Kermit, and it didn't go so well. And I don't want to add on to that, but I guess that's why I have to say that I'm relieved that you picked this one, because this is actually the best thing you've ever had me read.
Right. Well, before we dive too far into that, I'll do the summary real quick, and then we can listen to you gush for an hour. That'll be fun for me. The great Lombardi family was once at the top of the empire. After the death of its patriarch, the fate of the family and that of Florentia, born from a Lombardi and a peasant, fall to ruin at the hands of her useless and cruel cousins. But when she's reincarnated as her 7-year-old self, she'll work to protect the family's honor, gain her grandpa Lulak's favor, and prevent her own father's death. In this lifetime, there's only one way for her to win: become the head of their mighty household. So, spoiler alert, in the prologue, it shows that she did that. So, we're done here. Don't need to even read it.
Are you telling me that the heroine, the villainess, the whatever reincarnated person they're actually going to pull it off in the end?
Who could have ever guessed?
I did see a comment on Bato that made me genuinely laugh out loud, where the grandfather is worried about her hanging out with the second prince. Mm-hmm. And the comment on Batu is like, "Don't worry, Grampy. He's the male lead. I saw it on the cover."
Yeah. I do have to say, though, this has an interesting thing that I don't think we've seen in any of the other ones we've done so far, where maybe we have. I don't know. She's an isekai protagonist, so she's originally from Korea, but then she goes through her second life here in this fantasy world, which actually probably isn't a fantasy world. There's aura, so maybe it's magic.
Yeah.
But she goes through this life and has a really difficult time, and then she regresses. So, I mean, it's like a double isekai.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was going to say maybe the actual isekai from our world to this world is not necessary to the story, but I wouldn't say
it is.
There's a few places where they sprinkle in, she comes up with the idea of limited edition lines of clothing and stuff like that. But
oh yeah. You haven't gotten to this part yet. Spoilers, everybody. Ben didn't read the whole thing. Who could have guessed?
I read a lot. I've been reading this for hours.
After the time skip, she starts to do stuff because she's older now, she's like, okay, I have to actually make a name for myself and not have it be secret. And so she comes up with the idea of what is basically Amazon. So like it's like a delivery system, but like they're going to have spread out warehouses. So like in each territory, they have a supply of stuff. And so people can get stuff delivered to their house like really quickly. Okay. And of course it's a huge success and everybody's like, oh my God, this young girl came up with this idea that's so revolutionary and amazing. This is insane.
Do you ever struggle to like square your political beliefs about the like capitalism and monopoly with cheering for these protagonists who are obviously engaging in monopolistic business practices?
No, that's definitely one of the things that I just ignore.
Yeah. I was thinking that as Ferentia's going, I'm like, yeah, get him.
Yeah.
Wait, you can't own the supply chain and the store and the
Ferentia
and the guy who makes
Bezos.
it. And, yeah. Right, Ferentia. That's no. I mean, you have all the money, and then I do love how she's just like sitting there, like, I'm this rich. Wow.
Yeah. The Lombardis are like already the most powerful family in the empire, and she's just like, how can I make the Lombardis even more powerful? It's okay because I'm a good person and I will do good things and not be an evil capitalist nightmare.
I feel like this is every Korean Zaibatsu lord's dream daughter.
Yeah, right. Oh, but yeah, I've been reading this for a while and it's one of my favorites. It's one of the best rated ones that we've seen.
Oh, I'll tell you the truth. Like, I don't mean to disregard or like diminish the other series, but like this is kind of in a class by itself. Like,
okay,
this doesn't need to be one of these webtoon comics. Like, this could be a TV show. This could be a drama. Like, this is actually really good. The writing is like a notch above everything else.
Considering some of the other series that we've seen get anime recently, this will probably get one. I'd have to imagine.
I think it could honestly, like, I'd watch a live action of this. Like, I'd watch this on HBO or something. This is right up there with any of the other big like period dramas.
You know, funny
it's
enough,
a little wacky because of the Isekai stuff.
I think this is an adaptation. I think this is is it? Now I'm curious. I mean, yeah. No, there's a novel. Okay.
I was going to say, because whoever writes this is, they're good. And I've got to, I usually take notes, but it's usually more like, okay, this is the character with the silver hair. This is the character with the blue hair. I'm just trying to remember all the details. But with this one, I took notes specifically of like things I wanted to call out that were amazing. And just the little attention to detail, like so often, especially in something that runs for 150 some chapters, and this is, I'm going to assume, is going to run for like 200 to 300.
I would think so. I mean, the place that we're at now, I still think we've got 40 chapters or more until we get to a point where it's going to be ready for her to actually take over the family. And then there's going to have to be parts after that because, as we saw in the prologue, her and Perez aren't actually like together yet. Mm-hmm. So there'll have to be parts after that, which sort of wrap up their relationship stuff.
Well, and so where I was going with that is, for something that runs this long, it's really easy to have a bunch of stuff in the beginning that just gets thrown away. Mm-hmm. But like, all of this keeps getting tied together. Like, there's so many little details planted right up front that wind up getting paid off like spectacularly, just at the right time. And it could be cheesy in another comic, but in this, the timing is on point. I don't really know what to expect from this one, because I was expecting that the childhood arc would not last as long as it did. This one doesn't seem to be separated into seasons.
I was just looking at the chapter list, and yeah, I don't think it doesn't have season markers. I don't know. I haven't kept track of when.
So I noted like 3 arcs as I was going through. There's what I would call the childhood arc, which is like age 8 to 11. And then the youth arc, which is like 11 to 13. And then it seems like there's the young adult arc, which is like the 18 plus. And the childhood arc lasts about probably 50 chapters. So I think it's like 50, 50, 50. Because it seems like where I left off, she's about to have her debut. And it seems like after that, there's going to be a time skip. And that's right around 100, 110 chapters.
Yeah.
And so it
Looking
seems like
at some of the dates here, and there was a significant gap in release from chapters 118 to 119.
Yeah. So I feel like every 50 to 60 chapters, they're moving into like what would be a season.
Yeah.
But the 8 to 11 stuff, the fact that it lasted 50 chapters, I didn't know what this was going to be, because I didn't have this pegged as a like a child rearing. I guess that's what they call that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't
It's
actually
not.
put it in that category, although there are some parts of it that sort of fall into a couple of those tropes, but nothing that would put it firmly into that category.
No, I mean, it feels like it does that. Sorry. It feels like it does the child rearing stuff for about 50 chapters, and then it does a perfect arc of that. It has a beginning, middle, and end. A bunch of stuff's paid off, and then it moves into this middle space that I don't really know that another comic we've read has really lived in, where she's like 11. She's got a little bit more maneuverability. She's got the trust of like certain adults who recognize that she is a prodigy, and she's able to work through them to achieve like bigger things. And then eventually she'll come into her own. And I think that's why I say, like, I don't know how long this is going to run, because it's almost like it reinvents itself with each arc. And there's so much room for it to continue going.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm certainly fine with it running for a long time yet. This is one of the ones where every week when it comes out, it's like one of the first. I'm like, oh, gotta go check that out. And I mean, this was probably one of the first ones I ever picked up. It's definitely like one of the first 10 or so. And, just immediately like, oh, this is so good. I'm all about this.
Yeah. I guess the childhood arc, sort of to begin at the beginning, she's reborn. And one of the things I really like about this, that I think actually even Kermit would probably like, is she's reborn. In her previous life, she's regressed, I should say. In her previous life that she is regressing from, she experienced a timeline of events, but from a perspective where she doesn't necessarily know all the details. So she sort of knows where big things are going to happen, but she doesn't necessarily know why they happened or who all was involved or what was going on.
Yeah.
So there are still challenges and problems she has to solve. And the author does a really good job of making it so that you can kind of predict where the problems are going to be. You can't always predict the solution, but sometimes you can. Sometimes it's not just pulled out of nowhere. She doesn't just like remember the magical cure.
Right.
For example, she has to like find it. And the hints were there of
The
what
cure
it would be.
for her father's illness, and he passed away when she was 11.
Yeah.
Which we didn't say anything about yet.
Well, yeah, we'll get there. But like, it's also, so it starts off kind of just like an average, one of these average like child rearing isekai. So she's a bastard child. So she doesn't have the status she should have. She tried to sort of keep a low profile the first time around. Always a mistake. Always. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. We all know that. And so she's decided to go for it this time. Her dad's kind of a softie. He's just kind of a book reading loser.
I
think,
do want to say,
honest.
like, she could have had a fine life as a commoner. Like, it seemed like she wasn't like destitute living on the streets or anything. She was just living like a normal life. She just wasn't part of a big fancy, super rich family.
No,
It's just she got drunk and got trampled by a horse. It would have been fine if
We've
you
all
just
been there.
wouldn't have been an alcoholic.
Well, she wouldn't have been an alcoholic if she hadn't gotten kicked out of the family.
True.
But they set it up like, again, kind of generic. Like, okay, so there's going to be the dad's kind of a softy, kind of weak. And in her previous life, he died young. So there was no one there to look out for her by the time.
Galahad.
Yeah. By the time her grandfather realized her talents, the line of succession had already sort of been decided. And after the grandfather died, they just kicked her out because she wasn't one of their pawns.
Which I gotta say, they keep building up Lulak as like, oh, he's so smart and amazing, and he's like the best head and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, but he can't see that his son, who is his heir, is like a piece of shit.
Yeah, that is a conceit for sure. Because he's cartoonishly stupid.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget that he named his eldest son Balsac.
I did know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Belzac.
Belizak. Look, when your last name is Balsac, you either become the bully or you become the bullied. So that's he became the bully. So there's three sons and a daughter.
The second son, Laurels, I think, is super inconsequential, and you never hear from him.
Okay, I was gonna say, so far he hasn't done anything. He just sort of sucks up. He exists to have a child who also eventually just sort of fades away.
Actually,
Does he come back?
honestly, he's more of a character. His two sons,
Yeah, okay. The second I
Astalu
did
and
forget.
Craney. Craney is like an actual character.
Yeah, I forgot he was. I forgot Craney was his son.
Yeah. Well, and because he's always hanging out with Visay's kids, so it's easy to forget.
Yeah. Well, and he
Laurels
looks
is
like him
very
too.
easy to. Yeah. Well, they all look very similar. Actually, Galahad's the only one who looks like different, and you're like, wait.
So there's three sons and a daughter. The Ferentia's father's the third son, so he never really wanted to compete in the line of succession. The daughter married a dude who, right from the bat, is kind of sus. And I liked that. And I think
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, because she remembers, like, early on in the story, she remembers that her aunt gets divorced at some point, but she doesn't know what happened because her aunt doesn't really talk to anybody. Her aunt just sort of like fades away, and then the dad takes the kids, and then nobody in the family ever sees them again. And it's weird because the aunt also seems cool right off the bat.
I guess you probably didn't get to this, but
I got to the divorce. I know what happens.
there's a part later on where Lulak gets sick and he needs like a temporary head. And so obviously he's gonna name Visay the temporary head. He's the eldest son. He's the current heir, right?
Still, he's going to do that?
Well, at this point, Visay hasn't really shown his hand of how incompetent he is, but this gives him a chance to. And so, with a little bit of goading from Ferentia, he messes up a whole lot of stuff. And so then Lulak names Shannonette as the temporary head over him.
Nice.
So-
Because that's another challenge they set up in the world is women can head a family. They can be the head of a noble family, but it's rare.
Yeah.
And it normally happens when all the male heirs are dead.
And in fact, a relative of theirs is like that. Her, it was an aunt.
Oh, I know who you mean. The head of the Southern family.
Yeah.
I forget her name.
It's
Like Seneschal or Seren
sure. It's Shershaw.
Shershaw. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's okay. So it's Lulak's sister-in-law. So the Lulak's wife who passed away was a Shershaw, and her sister. Oh, they don't have it listed here, but yeah, her sister is the head of the Shershaw family. And that's important. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. So,
Well, and that's where I say, like, this person can really write because every one of these characters is fully realized. I don't think I've seen that before, where it's like,
okay, I gotta, Ben, when we finally do The Villainess Lives Again,
okay,
you need to start reading it earlier, okay? Because it's over 200 chapters, and everything
God.
you're saying about how you like the writing in this one is exactly what that's doing as well. There's so many details and so many characters, and all of the characters are interconnected and all this stuff, and it's just, there's so much of it. So
I will admit, I knew I was in trouble. I started reading. I did start reading early, but I was kind of plodding along. The childhood arc, I would say the first, like the first 30 chapters, I didn't really get what was going to be special about this one. She's because it starts off like she knows there's this divorce. She drops a bunch of details about the family, things she knows that are going to happen, things she doesn't know everything about. One of the things she knows right off the bat is that her dad's going to develop this illness, and there's this person who is an apprentice right now. She is eventually going to develop the cure for that illness, and so Ferentia wants to make sure that person gets noticed right away and gets a scholarship and gets into school so she can start working on this freaking cure. And the teachers start to notice how special she is, and it's that kind of like Isekai thing of like, I'm the specialist, I'm the best, I'm doing all the plans.
honestly, the most unrealistic thing about this is that no one figures out how, like, that she has all this special knowledge ahead of time.
I will give it like eventually they start to suspect there's something. I mean, I'll give them the basics of like, yeah, if I ran into a crazy prodigy child, my first gut instinct, mine might be because of all this stuff I've read, but like, my first instinct would not be like, you have memories of your past life. You regressed. You've done this all before. Everyone who can see the future. There's no such thing as like a clairvoyant. They're all just people who have regressed.
Oh, yeah.
But she also meets the male lead, who is, of course, the ridiculously abused second son. He's a Cinderella type. His stepmother has been slowly poisoning him, and she comes.
He's literally living in one of the detached palaces,
It's like living in a haunted house in the middle of the
Imperial
woods.
grounds that's literally just falling apart. It's basically abandoned. I think he does have like one or two servants who like bring him food or whatever, but like no one's like cleaning up the place or taking care of anything. He's just like hanging out there in just dirty clothes, just huddled in a corner waiting for his next meal to come. It's like, this is ridiculous. This is so over the top.
Yeah. And what started to make me laugh, I think, and where I was like, I liked it from the beginning, but I thought like, okay, this just plugs in. Like, this is just another Otome Isekai. I don't know if I'll be able to distinguish it from the others in like 3 months. But one of the things that made me laugh was the twins. There's the Ferentia very early on gets into a fight with the Ballsack the younger, and
who takes after his father.
Yeah, she sticks it to him, and there's these two creepy blonde twins who are her aunt's children, and in their previous life they just didn't pay attention to anyone, just kind of did their own thing. Now that they see she got this guy in trouble and she stood up to him and she beat him with a large book, they love her. They love her for beating up that kid. And they're just fucking creepy. They dote on her, and they're like very. I assume it's a neutral cousin sort of love, not a like West Virginia cousin love, like a
yeah. As far as I
just
can tell.
like a brotherly.
Basically, all of the cousins except for Ballsack, just like overwhelmingly love Ferentia after an amount of time.
I kind of figured that was where it was going. Like they were like it was a familial love, but I know like, I don't know, royals marry their cousins. That's a thing. So like, I don't know. But I don't think they're romantically interested, but these twins, they're kind of tough. Like they're both obsessed with swordsmanship. And so when she's going to get in trouble again, this dude, the bully kid, Ballsack, hits her in the face with a ball, makes her nose bleed. And they get into a big argument, and he's actually going to smack her with a wooden sword. And then the twins come out and huck a wooden sword at him, break his arm. And then they tell all the adults that he hit her in the face with a wooden sword, and she's unconscious. She can't tell what really happened. And then she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, they actually think he hit me in the face with a sword. And I was like, oh, for a split second, I wondered if she was going to do the honorable thing and try to get him out of a little bit of the trouble. But then
if it had been anybody else, yeah.
This is amazing. This worked out better than I ever could have hoped.
I need everybody to understand. Ballsack is like the worst child you know. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like the kind of kid where, we don't want to hurt children, right? But maybe this one.
Oh, no, he's like a Stephen King bully.
Yeah.
Like, he is like impossible bully. And the twins, like, Ballsack gets chewed out by the grandfather. And then the twins walk up to him and they're like, oh, he does that anime thing of like, I swear my eternal revenge. I will avenge this grievous insult that you inflicted on me while I was attempting to beat you, a small girl. And the twins pop up and they're like, oh, you're going to cause trouble, are you? I bet you'd cause less trouble if we broke your leg too. And they're framed like creepy twins. And there's just something inherently terrifying about twins. I'm sorry. Maybe too many horror movies. It's weird seeing two of a person. It's not supposed to happen.
Wait, you're there, but you're also over there. What?
Yeah. Do you share a soul?
No, actually, they don't have one at all.
And I'm kidding. If there's any twin listeners out there, it's a joke. But
fraternal twins.
If you're identical twins, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what you are. But yeah, I like that. And so the other thing I thought was really cool about the childhood arc that I've not seen in another Otome Isekai, might happen, but the second prince, he's being horribly abused, and she helps him. She gives him this medicine to counteract the poison. She promises to come see him again. When she eventually does come see him again, he's just totally blown away that she kept her promise. He's in love forever now. That sealed the deal. And she tells him, I'm not going to be able to see you again until I'm 11. That's just how these things are going to work. I guess there's a political thing. And she says, but let's write letters to each other. And so they write letters, and I thought this was really cool because they didn't have to do this. I thought they were going to continue writing letters, and it was going to time skip to her like responding to one of his letters. Instead, they have you scroll through a bunch of back and forth letters between these two children, and they read like letters children would write. I mean, they're still interesting. They're still, it's like the budding romance, but it's very cute.
Well, the only problem I have with that, and this is like, they do address this a little bit, so I do need to give them some credit. But so Perez falls in love with Florentia like immediately, but he's a 9-10-year-old boy or whatever. I forget exactly how old he is at the time when they meet. At this point, Florentia is mentally like 40 or something like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, they do address it a little bit. She's like, well, he's obviously, having feelings for me, but, he'll get over that as he grows up. And obviously he's a child and I'm not, even though I'm in the body of an 8-year-old. But it is interesting how they, because by the time, like before the time skip, like the debutante ball and stuff, she's starting to fall for him, even though he's still only like 14 or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what you're doing here. But then we have a time skip, and so it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, I hand wave that away. She doesn't act like a 40-year-old. I can tell you that. She definitely doesn't act like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But she does act like a kid. She seems to, I'll put it this way. The other ways in which she acts like a kid are, she's a little manipulative of her grandfather, and I think he knows that, and he doesn't care. But
oh, you know what I just thought? I hadn't pegged this before, but the fact that she's an isekai protagonist means that the first time through her life when it was bad, she also would have been acting older than her actual age. Mm-hmm. So when she regresses, nobody's going to notice a difference when she regresses to being 7 or 8 or whatever it was, because she was already acting like a weird, too mature for her age child.
Yeah. She kept herself hidden, so I just think a lot of people didn't pay attention to her at all. But the way she is with her father, that's also very childlike.
Yeah.
I mean, she acts like a super mature kid. I kind of viewed it like, I would just view it as a kid who had memories of their past life. I don't think that's necessarily her personality. Like, she still has that knowledge and everything, but I don't know. She still seems to be like susceptible to childlike swings of emotion.
Yeah.
So I don't think she has.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
From time to time.
I'll let you in on like a little insight into my life. I had a session with my therapist, and I was describing a situation in which I was like, and I couldn't even tell like what emotion I wanted to feel at this point. I was like, I don't know if I was like angry or sad or whatever. And she's like, well, you could feel more than one emotion at a time. And I just looked at her. I was like, logically that makes sense, but I don't think that's ever occurred to me before. Like, you got there's like one emotion that's got to be like the dominant, right?
Haven't you ever seen the emotion? I don't know what it's called. It's basically a sort of like a Venn diagram or something, where it's like there's base emotions, happy, angry, sad, whatever. And if you start overlapping them, you get different emotions.
Like jealousy.
Jealousy, yeah, is like, I forget what jealousy was, but
angry and sad or something. Yeah, I mean, so what you're doing right now is the kind of exercises like my therapist has me do, like make a chart and like do all this stuff and rank things in terms of symptoms and stuff. And I'm like, wow, was I raised with toxic masculinity? Do other people know about this emotions?
I think, yeah. I mean, most of us that were raised in the 90s and early 2000s were, yeah, that's how it went.
I was like, wow, that's a lot to think about. 2 emotions at the same time or more. I don't even know how that works. But
I assume that your therapist doesn't know that you are on multiple podcasts, because if they did, they'd be like, "Oh, you don't need to go to therapy anymore.
You don't need therapy. You've got it all figured out. You're a podcaster. You tell me how I should feel." No, she does know I'm a podcaster, and she has not asked what podcasts. And I don't want her to listen. That would be. There's I got to reveal these things in due time,
Because then she might actually know something about you, and that's not.
If I don't want to be seen. Maybe that's another therapy problem. Maybe we should just do a therapy podcast. But yeah, so I think, unlike her, I do not experience swings of strong emotion, except for that one time, and I wound up having to talk to a therapist about it. So I thought the letter writing was cute. I thought that was a cool transition, and I thought that transitioned to the arc like perfectly into the next one. You got to see just enough of their relationship evolving, and they didn't have to do that.
It's a time skip that you can actually see instead of just being told this is what happened.
I would not have thought any less of it if it had just time skipped.
Right.
But because there was just a little something extra they did to help you understand these characters better. And it's all text, which is a bold choice for a comic. Like, a wall of text in a comic is not usually advisable.
Yeah, right.
And they relied on the fact that they could put a big block of text with static images of these people, and they had confidence in the writing that, you know what, this is just fucking adorable.
To be fair, this is a fairly text-heavy series to begin with, so it's not like a huge stretch.
I know, I didn't finish it, but I did spend like 15 hours reading it. I'm serious. I was like logging my time. Last night I was going through it, and I was like, there cannot be any way I'm only on chapter 80. How many chapters are left?
There's very little action in this. It's mostly talking.
And it's good.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you where I was hooked. So the childhood arc, I was like, okay, this is top tier. But
the childhood arc was, the childhood arc is a hook to get people who like other series with like the childhood stuff in them, and that was what did it for me when I started reading it, because it was very early on when I started reading it. There might have only been 15 chapters out at that point. And it was like, oh yeah, I like this kind of thing. She's a little kid, but she's smarter because she had this past life, and she can do this stuff, and she's gonna get this guy to do stuff for her so people don't know. And that's a thing that I like, and it hooked me.
There's a very Detective Conan vibe about the childhood stuff. Like she knows she can't. I'm going to skip ahead a little because this is, I guess, in the youth arc. But like when that person, we'll talk about it more when we talk about the divorce. But like when that lady has a necklace she shouldn't have. Mm-hmm. Ferentia can't call her out on that. So she needs to get her to a place where there's an adult. And there's so many things she does, like planting just little seeds where it's like, oh shit, I need to make the adults think about this. They're not thinking about it. So I need to tell her like, oh daddy, don't you know anything about this fabric? Have you seen this fabric? Isn't it like so neat? And he's like, oh yeah, that's corduroy. I noticed that because it wasn't corduroy. It was corduroy.
It might be corduroy because as we've seen, some of these names don't quite match up. That was before we started recording. The wiki for this actually has her name listed as Florentia, which I think makes way more sense. So you see stuff like that in there, you can just be like, I'm just going to headcanon this to corduroy because that's likely what they actually meant.
I could see it as being corduroy. Well, I think isn't corduroy like a weave style? It's not the fabric itself.
You know what? I have no idea what corduroy actually is. All I know, it's sort of like it's pleated, but those aren't actually pleats, and so I don't know.
Look, I don't know if they made corduroy or not, but it's terrible. Corduroy is terrible, and the fabric she was talking about was terrible, and she was trying to prevent a bad business deal. They made the corduroy acceptable by mixing it with some other fabric, which is not kosher, but that's fine. And so I like all that. I like that Detective Conan stuff. But what hooks me is in the youth arc, where you've known her dad's going to develop this illness the whole time, that he dies from it. And she's got the lady set up at the academy to try to find the cure. And then the first prince threatens her with a real sword. That's a whole big thing. And that's not even what got me. Like, I know you're supposed to be like all in the romance about like the first prince threatens her, the second prince saves her. It's a big dramatic moment. But then the dad goes down. The dad like collapses and he can't quite get back up. His leg doesn't work. And he's got this disease that is slowly going to paralyze him until it paralyzes his like diaphragm and he won't be able to breathe. And they have this whole dramatic thing, like it's happening too early, it's progressing too quickly. You honestly don't know if she's going to be able to save her father.
Yeah.
Because this is so unlike a lot of isekai. She's not in total control of this situation.
And to be fair to the prologue, we don't actually know from that. We know she becomes the head of the family and she's got a relationship with Perez, but we don't see anyone else in there, so we don't know who's still alive, who might have died, and so you actually have a question of, oh shit, is she actually going to be able to save her dad?
And up until this point, the dad's been trying to be a little bit more assertive. He's been trying to set up some money and a business to leave her behind, maybe even a little bit of land, so that she doesn't have to participate in this family bullshit. But it's still too early for him to die. If he dies now, she's not old enough to really assert her claim on any of this. So it could all be over. And this could be like, I could easily see it being another challenge for her to overcome, as if her dad dies right now. And then you've got her relationship with the second prince, and the second prince is obviously fawning all over her, and she kind of sees that, and he wants to spend more time with her, and she kind of sees that. And there's a scene where he invites her over for like one of their mandatory play dates because they've become official like playmates. And she's like, I don't have time for this shit. I should be looking for a way to save my dad. And what he has done is the play date is actually in the Imperial Library or whatever. And he's already got like every book on this disease laid out, and he's going to help her do what she wants. And she's like, it's the exact right gesture at the exact right time. And you're like proud of him because it's like, oh, you got it, kid. That was solid. That was exactly what you should have done. He wasn't selfish. He wasn't thinking about himself. He was honestly trying to help her. And
there's another one where he gets her a plant that she needs.
Yes.
As well.
And this happened in the stupid letter writing montage. that like in the letter writing montage, he sends her this flower that only grows in like his garden and it's rare in the South. And he sends her a bunch of these flowers and she's like, oh, they already wilted by the time they got here, but I turned them into bookmarks. Here, you can have one. Like I pressed them and I turned them into bookmarks. And so like there's this flower and I was like, I am not used to being like set up and paid off so subtly. I'm not used to subtlety in general from Isekai. And
to be fair, it is rare.
Yeah. And so that flower that wilts quickly, it's all established in what I thought was a cute throwaway line between children. And I did wonder why they would say, well, like, why did they have it wilt and she turns it into bookmarks? That's such a weird little detail. I noticed it because it was a weird little detail. That flower is the fucking key to the cure. And it is a very fragile plant. And when the rainy season comes, it's the flowers are wiped out and you have to wait for the next bloom. And so she figures out very late in the game that that's the final ingredient. And she and the doctor both figure it out at the same time. And it's this big dramatic moment. And like, you don't know if they're going to be able to get the cure in time.
Right, because they're like, we got to send to the South and get them to send it to, but how is that going to, because it's not going to ship and it's, you're like, oh my God, they might actually kill off the dad even after all of this.
And they send word to the palace, and then the second prince himself digs up the last remaining flowers that are in the palace gardens and rides over in the middle of the night in the rain himself.
Pouring rain, yeah.
Yeah, and they get like, it's so dramatic. And I was like, I was in because I honestly, they set it up like, they set up the fallout. If this guy dies, all the stuff we've worked for up to this point is at risk. And she might be able to salvage some of it.
Well, let's not skip over the fact that like she legitimately loves her dad.
Yeah, that
she is
too.
legitimately upset at the thought of losing him again. The way that they put the emotion into the art and into the words, out of so many things that I read, I'd say only 3% of what I read really resonates and hits me emotionally. And this is one of those that just hits me right in my core.
There's a panel that stuck in my mind where, again, they did something I didn't quite expect. Was she flashes back to her previous life where she's like, and all we could do was pray. And then the next panel is her standing at her father's bedside, praying not for him to live, but for him to die, because the process of slowly choking because your muscles can't breathe. There's no ventilator in this time period. They can't put him on anything. So they just got to wait for him to die. She's praying for a quick death. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. I wasn't expecting that to be the next panel. And, no, once we got to the, what is it? Trenbrow is the disease name or something?
That sounds right.
Once we got to the Trenbrow part, like as soon as the dad went down with the illness, I think I read straight through until he was cured. I didn't even look up from my phone.
Imagine, because this is what I had, week to week going through that. God.
No, I'm glad I did not have to. Because you care about him. Because first off, he's a nice guy, and he's just starting to get it.
Yeah.
Because he's just starting to self-improve, and he even when he's sick, he's very stoic. Like when he's sick, he has a moment of change where he's like, I need to make sure everything's taken care of to the best of my ability, and he's trying to do everything right. And this is also when he realizes that his daughter, she comes to him and she should be upset, like a little kid should be upset, scared, not sure what's going to happen. And instead, she's telling him, I need you to write this letter to our aunt, who is the great aunt, not the...
Shershaw, yeah.
Yeah, the one who he's made a business deal with. if she finds out that you're dying and the business could be taken, if that's how she finds out, we're going to be in trouble. So you need to write her a letter. You need to say this. You need to get this sent. And he realizes that there's something more going on with her. Mm-hmm. And he wants her to tell him all about it. And she will eventually, but like she doesn't tell him everything. And no, that whole thing where you don't know if he's going to be saved, like right up until the end, I didn't know if it was going to work. And that was awesome. Like my one note about this is like, I literally wrote the illness arc is a page turner. And I even like how
page scroller.
Yeah. And at that point, like, they're starting to like, they know the second prince, the father and the grandfather kind of clock that the second prince has a crush on Tia. And the father's like, look, I'm going to let this happen because I saw that kid stick a knife to the throat of the dude who was threatening my daughter, and I might not be here in 6 months. So yeah, if she's got somebody who's going to like kill somebody for her, let him hang around. We're going to need a bit of that going forward.
I mean, to be fair, the twins would too.
Yeah, no. Acquire people who will murder for you. That is the lesson of this story.
I think that's just a good life lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody wouldn't go to jail for you, they're not your friend. But no, I that was when I was hooked. From that point on, I've been basically reading this every like free moment I had. It does slow down a bit, but it's good. Like it was another thing where I was like, okay, let's take a break. Let's take an emotional break.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything quite as heavy as that after that. Although the Shenanette divorce
divorce arc was great. I mean, the stakes weren't
pretty
as high.
heavy. Yeah.
Like nobody was going to die for that, but you still don't want, like, you still like the aunt at this point. She's done enough, and you feel for her because like they do a very good job of like the twins realizing like the twins are mad one day and they're like extra sensitive to the bullying, and they just threaten to beat the shit out of Ballsack. And I didn't even mention during the sickness arc, he finds out they're trying to keep the illness on the down low, and the oldest brother finds out about it and leaks it to everybody.
Yeah.
And tells the doctor, stop treating him. Let's get this over with as soon as we can. And he laughs. And then when the father finds that out, the father is just done with that guy. And that's so rewarding. When her dad finally is like, yeah, you do you. I'm not even in this anymore, but you stay the fuck away from me and my daughter. And I was like, oh, that's so great. I like this guy. I like the aunt because she also doesn't tolerate the bullying and the incompetence. And I think the husband's betrayal is a little high drama. Like he's just
it's very over the top.
Yeah. But there was a moment where I was reading this as my wife was getting ready for work, and I was like, I was telling her, I was like, okay, there's so much, like, I want to tell you what I'm reading because it's so good, but like, I start just describing it, and I was like, okay, so there's this necklace, right? And this necklace is important.
That's a great way to start. Okay, so like, there's this necklace. What?
I was like, okay, so the Lombardis, I know, yeah, like the trophy, yes. And I forgot about that. I started reading this and I was like, oh, it's another one of these dumb Isekai family names. It's just making me think of the Vince Lombardi trophy.
But no, the ancient Lombardis, not the current one.
Yeah. Hey, the family's still great. They kept up. Like they may not be owning diamond mines anymore, but still one of the winningest coaches in football.
Well, so as a bit of an aside, the whole, since we're talking about the Lombardi name, there is one criticism that I've seen people put in the comments, and I sort of agree with, which is over and over again, they just go, well, we can do this because we're the Lombardis and the Lombardis are great. And like they just use that over and over again. And it's just like, oh, I mean, I guess, yeah, you're the most powerful noble family in the whole empire, but come on. They keep using the name as if like just being part of the family makes you amazing, when we keep seeing that is definitely not the case.
I agree with the criticism that's kind of sloppy writing, maybe, but
I wouldn't call it I think it's realistic. Like that's definitely what rich and powerful families do. Do you know who my grandfather is? You know,
I think the thing I like about it, and again, this is, it's like I said at the beginning, where it's like, Tia is the ultimate capitalist.
Yeah.
And she is, the way she conducts her business affairs, I would consider her to be kind of not a good person. But I let it go because it's a fantasy. I know she is a good person. I mean, this is like the Superman fantasy, where it's like the fantasy of Superman is not like a lot of superheroes where you can put yourself in their shoes and imagine how cool it would be to have those superpowers. The fantasy of Superman is, what if somebody who had power didn't suck?
Yeah, right. What if not like real life?
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing with Tia is like, well, what if the capitalist didn't abuse the workers? What if they made a lot of money and they were like, wow, I made a lot of money. Profit sharing.
Right.
And so we know Tia's not greedy. And so when she says like, we're Lombardis, we can do this. I think the fantasy there is, what if those families who were like, don't you know who I am? Like, what if they each actually worked as a team for each other's benefit? Like, what if they were all on the same page about their values and their business, and they conducted themselves accordingly? Like, wouldn't that be cool? If families acted the way we pretend they do.
It's almost like the perception that like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk want us to have of them.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like I see a lot of Game of Thrones in this, and I'm not sure. Like, you tell me, is the first prince an incest baby?
I don't think so.
Because there is a thing. So the Empress looks like Cersei Lannister.
Yeah.
The first prince looks like Joffrey. And at one point, somebody comments, it's like the head of the Anganese family comments, he doesn't look like he has a drop of the Emperor in him. He looks entirely like his mother. And I didn't know if they were going to full Game of Thrones this, and he is Joffrey and the Emperor is not his father.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Because they also do the thing where this emperor has a bunch of concubines, and he's had dozens of children, and she has killed all of them, which is a thing Cersei Lannister also does in Game of Thrones. She kills all of Robert Baratheon's bastards, except one, who escapes to the Night's Watch, which is not at all like an academy, but it's kind of
the only mistake she made. The only one. No, the Emperor, I mean, the Emperor is a piece of shit too. Funny enough, he's like the not worst piece of shit person in this series. Like, he's terrible, but also he's not overt about it.
Yeah, he's just kind of playing both sides.
Yeah.
He's on Team Emperor.
Whereas like the Empress and basically all of the Aganaeus and then some of the Lombardis are just like outwardly terrible.
Yeah, I haven't really seen, I guess they did bully a family. So I don't know why, other than the Empress being a sociopath, I don't really know why we're supposed to hate the Anganese family. I know they bullied another noble out of, which again is something the Lannisters do. They tricked the Casterlys out of Casterly Rock. which is how the Lannisters became a power in the West.
The point of the Agonias family is that, like, they're a juxtaposition to the Lombardis. They're supposed to be. So where the Lombardis are powerful and they use their power, their riches and power for the good of the empire, the Agonias are rich and powerful and they use their riches and power to get more riches and power.
To be
to
fair,
the detriment of everyone around them.
In fairness to, like, if I'm a commoner sitting here, I'm not seeing a lot of difference.
Yeah, probably. I mean, except for the fact they do make it a point to show, like, the Lombardi compound and, like, the workers who live there and, like, how well they're taken care of, and, like, the Lombardis are trying to.
I guess we do see the prince slap
yeah.
is made, which is something I heard Baron Trump recently did.
The child Baron, his name is Baron, not like the title Baron.
No, the child Baron Trump apparently. Well, a bunch of stuff. Somebody did like an expose recently where some disgruntled employee said a bunch of stuff about him, and they said when he was a kid he used to just beat the crap out of his nannies.
When are we gonna get a Trump manhwa?
Oh God! Don't ask for things. don't bring things in. I'm sure there is one. First off, I'm sure there's at least one. But
there's the one Trump daughter who's, like, not insane. It'll be about her, right? She reincarnates, and then, like, yeah,
it would actually be perfect because her father also was kicked out of the family. Basically, he died in disgrace as an alcoholic. He just and he was the first son, and he fell out of favor. He tried to escape the family, but he didn't quite get out. She has a book out. Mary Trump is her name.
Yeah.
I've read her book, and it is hauntingly like one of these guys. What if we are like, we're living in the events of the first life. Mary Trump hasn't been run over by a horse yet. So, yeah, Mary, if you get Isekai, you have a big responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah, hopefully she can go back in time and right a lot of these wrongs.
Yeah. Oh man.
How far back do you think she'd have to go? Probably
I don't know.
The early 80s,
it would be an interesting thought exercise to figure out how Mary Trump, from her position in the family, could possibly affect anything that happened in the Trump family.
Could she stop the Reagan presidency?
She would have to. Well, the Trumps were Democrats, I think, for a long time.
Right, but like, I mean, I think that would do a lot of good, is stopping the Reagan presidency.
She would have to somehow, like, win over Fred Trump's cold, dead heart and prevent Donald from taking the empire. Like, she'd have to be like, Grandpa, what if we allowed minorities to rent our apartments?
Oh shit!
They have money too.
What if this is the second timeline?
Oh no!
And because Trump bankrupted so many different companies, what if that was all her?
Mary's
it just so happens that in doing so, there's a butterfly effect that made him become president. And
Patreon stretch goal. We write the Mary Trump Isekai.
We would need a lot of patrons to cover that.
We would, but hey, tell your friends.
If we can reach a monthly Patreon contribution of $20,000 a month.
$1,000. That's more than any of these people get paid.
Then we'll
to make any of these Otome Isekais.
I want to be realistic here.
20 grand a month. We could start our own publishing company and just have hire. We could have 6 of these going.
Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to be realistic.
I'm trying to be like my hero, Ferentia.
What were we talking about before we got into politics? Oh, the emperor. Yeah. There's something interesting there because after the time skip, he's including the first prince in like the council meetings or whatever they're called, and at the time when that started, Perez was at the academy, right? So he's off at the academy, and I guess also traveling around during time off and like becoming this world-renowned guy, learning all kinds of stuff and, you know, honing his fighting skills. And also, and I got to give Tia credit here because she figured this out really quickly, even though Perez hasn't figured out her thing yet, which is he started his own guild company thing that he's the secret head of, which is exactly what she did. What?
The Red Guild.
Funny enough, it's called the Monarch Guild, which is like, oh, come on, dude. Like, that's too on the nose.
Like the butterfly.
We didn't really touch on this, but Tia is working through her childhood tutor, Claraven, to establish a guild that she's secretly running, but like it's his company that's even called his last name, the Pellet Corporation. Nobody figured out that she's secretly running it, which is, I mean, come on. There's even a point where she picks up an information broker guy who's like a spy kind of thing. He runs a
cake shop
as a cover. And even he couldn't figure it out completely. He got close, but he couldn't figure it out completely. Cause she was like, cause he's like, she's trying to recruit. She's trying to recruit him. And he's like, why would I want to get recruited by a little girl? And she's like, okay, I'm going to give you a job. And if you can complete the job successfully, I won't recruit you. But if you can't complete it, I'll tell you what's actually going on, and then you'll work for me. And he's like, okay. And so he works, and he gets really close. He's like, I found all this information, but it all just stops right here. And she's like, yeah, it's because I'm secretly running all of this stuff. And he's like, oh shit.
She does like a fucking power move at that meeting too, where she's like, yeah, there's no way you could have figured it out because you're just a guy who listens to information. I am in the rooms. I create the information. So I'll tell you what, you work for me and I'll help you figure out the stuff you do. Cause like you know things about the Emperor. You hear people talking about the Emperor. I know him. I had lunch with him yesterday. He's a dick. Yeah, right. You didn't know how much of a dick he was. You also don't know why my grandfather would sell grain at a loss. It's because he's that spiteful towards the other family. He just doesn't like them. You're sitting here trying to crunch the numbers, but it's that easy, man. He just hates them.
That's a thing that rich people do.
Oh, Peter Thiel financing Hulk Hogan's porn suit.
So Perez is out there. He makes his own guild. So now the Monarch Guild and the Pellet Corporation are like at odds against each other. Tia figures out very quickly that the Monarch Guild is secretly run by Perez. Perez, even at the time of the current arc, has not figured out that Tia is secretly running the Pellet Corporation, even though Perez went to Claraven?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say it properly.
It's like Claritin, but with a pen.
Okay. He even goes and like talks to him and tries to like figure stuff out, and he can't do it. But anyway, all of that to say, Perez comes back from the academy. He's like built his own little empire that's going on here. And the Emperor's like, oh yeah, you should join these meetings too. And Perez just goes into these council meetings and just walks all over the first prince. And it's so embarrassing.
Have they done anything yet with the fact that
that's his name?
that the first prince seems to like Tia?
No, hasn't really. Because after the whole he attacks her thing, they like are never in the same room together, basically.
Well, he runs into her again when she's visiting the second prince, and he calls him. He's just Draco Malfoy's the whole thing, and he's like, "You mudbloods," and blah blah blah, and then she walks away from him. He's like, I didn't mean for it to go that far. It's just that you're always with him, and you're not with me.
They do frame it as like that little kid thing where it's like, I don't know how to be nice to her, even though I like her. So I'm just going to be mean to try and get attention from her.
Look. When I was a young lad of 8 or so years, I might have done something like that, like picked on a girl I didn't like. I don't think I ever called anyone a slur. This dude's nuts.
I mean, basically all of the Agoniases are. That's sort of the point. It's a little heavy-handed sometimes.
It's tough because, like, he's got nice eyebrows. That's a thing for me. I really like his eyebrows. I really like that blonde with darker eyebrows. Like I like blondes with dark, thick eyebrows. And I know he's both a dude and a child, so that's weird. But like, I like his face. I like his face.
Such a pretty child.
I like the way he's drawn. I like the character design. That's what we need.
Something I noticed is like when we go through all of these the political things that are going on with like the council and the emperor and the family versus family and everything, I keep looking at these situations and just going, how is this empire functioning? All of these people are constantly fighting. They're all going for their best interests. It's like, oh, we need support for this region because this bad thing is happening. And everybody's like, no, well, but this other place is getting support and that's more important. And it's just like, how has this empire not collapsed like a long time ago? I don't get it.
Boy, I don't know if you're aware it's an election year, but I've been. Oh, you live an ad-free life. I forget that.
Yeah.
So like on YouTube, you have the YouTube Red or whatever they call it now.
Premium. Yeah.
I watched one video about a guy going through rural Pennsylvania, and it was funny because he was going to a bunch of places I've been, and that's why I wanted to watch it. And he's talking to people, and I'm like, "Yep, that's done canon." And after that, I have got nothing but ads for Republican politicians running in Pennsylvania on YouTube, and it has been hell.
Yeah.
Did you know Kamala Harris gave all of our money to illegal immigrants?
I that's what I wanted her to do. Yeah.
That's my thing. They're like, Bob Casey, dangerous radical. And I was like, I fucking wish, bro.
That's right.
I've been writing letters to that guy since I was 18. He hasn't done anything I wanted him to do.
They keep going, Kamala Harris is a communist. And I'm like, I wish. Can we please get one of those? I don't need the whole government to be communist, just a couple of them.
I don't want to get political. She's a fucking cop. She's a cop. Like,
right.
Where there's like, she's a leftist. She's a hippie leftist trying to give all our money to the prisoners. I was like, she put him in prison.
I really doubt that once Tia is queen, which I can only assume is what's going to happen, that she's going to enact, any kind of socialism or anything.
She's just going to enhance her. She's just going to continue to enhance her family's fortune at the expense of the common man. But she's adorable.
She'll give back some.
Yeah, if you work directly for her and you're nice to her, she'll probably do something nice for you. But she's adorable.
She's going to have orphanages. She's going to have like work programs, all that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, if you just look at the surface, it looks like she's doing a lot of good. But if you dig a little deeper, you go, where did the money for all that come from in the first place? Oh, it's a consolidation of wealth. Okay. And it originally came from the workers themselves. And so you're basically just redistributing all of their wealth, except you're taking a huge cut of it for yourself. Okay. I got it. Yep.
Yeah. I think I really liked Tia. I really liked watching her, try to cure her father's illness. I respect her relationship between her and her father, but I do think I will struggle to support her policies going forward. If this continues for another 500 chapters and we get into like 35-year-old Tia sitting in the council meeting, I'm going to want to know how she plans to empower other families to acquire similar wealth as the Lombardis. And
you know what? I'm on board. I'll keep reading that.
let's have an Otome Isekai go deep.
So to get a little bit into spoiler territory in the latest arc, there's sort of a fast track going on that's going to shake up a lot of the political machinations. I think I mentioned this while we were recording and not before, but the Empress's father, the head of the Agnes, gets caught up in a natural disaster in one of the territories.
You say that, I keep imagining volcano for some reason.
It was pretty close to that, yeah.
Shit, nice.
Anyway, so Tia and Perez actually go out to this territory to do, when rich people go visit a natural disaster because they're donating money to it and they want to like appear there. So people are like, oh, this person's really good, even though they're not actually doing anything. So that's what they're doing. They're going to visit. However, the head of the family that runs this territory hates the imperial family, which good for him. But also he refuses the funds that the imperial family is giving for disaster relief.
You always take the money.
He accepts it from the Lombardis, but unfortunately that's not enough to cover everything. And so they're not really rebuilding quickly enough, and they're not like dealing with the issues that caused the natural disaster in the first place because they don't have enough funds. What's interesting is Perez goes behind this guy's back and starts distributing funds and managing things on his own, which pisses the guy off. Except then, and this was happened in just the latest chapters that came out, Tia is going to visit she's actually on her way back from visiting one of the disaster sites and gets caught in another event. And so now she's trapped and Perez is rushing to her rescue.
Oh my God.
So the prologue was wrong. She's about to die, and that's where it's going to end. So
I shall master this volcano.
all of that to say, I'm so on board with this. Every single week when it comes out, I'm just like, what's next? Yeah, more. I think you're going to need to catch up so that you can suffer with the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I don't know if they get into another like super depressing arc again, I will just wait until the chapters pile up.
I don't think it's depressing right now. I mean, eventually the grandfather's going to die, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a bad one.
They did an illness thing, but like he recovered from that. So, I don't know.
He still seems pretty spry. He's in his like 60s. Well, he's probably in his 70s by now.
He's probably in his mid 70s,
Yeah.
I think. Which, I mean, considering the medical technology that they have, that's pretty old.
Yeah. What do they say about like old medieval times? It's like people, if you made it to like 12, you sometimes just went all the way.
Yeah, right.
It's the being a child you don't want to do.
Are there any other story beats we want to cover? Should we get into the rubric?
I have a note that is just shit. I forgot about the mines. That was the whole like when they're acquiring the diamond mine, and
I told you there was a mine.
yeah, they call it a mine. But yeah, no, I really like this one. So yeah, let's do the rubric.
So before we get into actually rubricing, we need to decide if this is going to be a romance or not.
I don't think so, not yet.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I was thinking about the direction of the story and everything, and I think that eventually this is going to be a lot, probably like half romance. But I think up until this point, I don't think we can say that. There's just not enough of it. There's little hints here and there, and there's, exchanged glances and light touching and everything, but like it's just not front and center enough.
No, I think it's crushes at this point.
Right.
So they're kids. I mean, for most of what's been done, they are literal children. So
The current natural disaster arc is actually something that's going to be pushing the romance along. I read a couple spoilers, but within the Monarch Guild, there's this person who's helping Perez, this woman who he like.
Oh, the redhead,
the redhead.
Shit, I forgot about that.
And so Tia she sees her for this first time and goes, oh, and she's with him and. Yep. Okay. Yep. They're together. That's what happened last time. So that's what.
But why is it bothering me so much?
Right. Yeah.
Like like in every Otome Isekai where there's a destined like significant other.
Right. And what's actually happened is this redhead. I mean, she's just competent and a good worker, a good person, and she's been spending all this time with Perez, who has just been gushing about Tia the whole time. And so this redhead's
My man.
Oh. Ferencia Lombardi, I wanted to meet you for so long. You're so amazing.
My man, friend zone her. We'll get her with one of the twins.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, no, we'll get her a love interest. We'll get her a good one. But you just got to stay out of my ship.
So maybe when we revisit this after it's complete in 14 years, maybe we look at some romance aspects of it then, but yeah, for now, not romance.
Yep.
Sorry, romance lovers. I think there's enough in here to keep you going. It's just not the focus. Romance is one of the tags. It's tagged as romance. So all right. Well, as always, the rubric is up on our website. So if you'd like to rubric along with us, which, I'm a little disappointed. Nobody's ever posted their rubric up on the Discord. see how it matches up with ours.
It's a lot. Speaking of walls of text, though, I mean, it is quite the rubric.
Well, but I mean, they don't need to post like all of the text of it. They just need to post the numbers.
Yeah, but I mean, I could imagine looking at it and being like, wow, this is a lot to read. I don't care.
Yeah, I can see that. But it's an interactive rubric. I built an interactive rubric for you guys. Come on, you got to go on there and use it.
Come on, do this one. Read 150 chapters of this comic and then go and do our big rubric. Hey, you got a month. I mean, this is your Otome Isekai homework.
Yeah, right. All right. So, starting off as always with content and ideas. I have an idea of where we're going with this. I'd like to hear your opinion first.
I went with a 5.
Yep.
I won't say it's like the most original thing I've ever seen. I keep comparing it to there's a lot of plot points borrowed from other fantasy like Game of Thrones. I'm sure I could find other things, but I would say the lasting impact certainly comes into play. I think you got a little choked up when you were describing Tia and her dad during the illness, and I felt the same way. I remember that quite clearly. I remember a lot of the faces made when conversations were happening, and I think it's just it's that not medieval, but like that late classical period, or where it's that period drama where you've got nobles and infighting and intrigue, and it's done like perfect. It's an ambitious thing in that it does a little bit of the child rearing, a little bit of the regression, a little bit of the isekai. Like, it's really taking the genre to the top.
So I want to say that, like, something not being completely 100% new ideas, something that has tropes within it, something that is made up of other things that we've seen before, doesn't preclude it from being original and interesting. Some of the best works out there take existing concepts and ideas and tropes and put them together in new and interesting ways.
Oh yeah. Like,
and I think that's a lot of what's going on here.
Like, one of my favorite authors, I would say like one of the greatest writers of all time, is Agatha Christie. And she did not invent the murder mystery, but she does it better than almost anyone.
Yeah.
And what the originality she brings to the table is in like the intricacies of the plot and the characters and the way she chooses to execute it. And I think this is definitely like masterful otome isekai.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I think a lot of the times when you're mashing stuff together, the thing that takes it over the top, not just the way that you connect those tropes, those existing ideas, but also sprinkling in originality into that. You can certainly do really well by sort of remixing those ideas in a good way, but the icing on the cake, so to speak, is the extra little bits that haven't been done in those before. I think a lot of the stuff with the sort of new and interesting business concepts that Tia brings up is one of the things that, we've seen similar things in other otome isekai, but like in this kind of period drama type, that hasn't really been done, and to the extent that they're doing it here. So things like that. There's those threads that connect the existing tropes together that takes us to the top. All right, so pacing and structure. I think people will be able to guess where we're at with this because you touched on this in our discussion already.
Spent a lot of time on this, yeah. But I'm at a 5.
Yeah, the way that it never spends too much time on anything, but it also doesn't spend too little time on anything. It's sort of perfectly balanced in that regard. Even the whole like, oh, she's going to be a little kid and then she's going to be preteen / teenager, and then we're going to jump forward. Like, all of the time skips are done right when they need to be. I specifically remember, I believe it was at the end of the second age arc, sort of overarching arc. So right before the skip to adulthood kind of thing. I think she's still a teenager, but we'll call it adulthood. It's, so sort of like towards the end of the debutante ball and all that kind of stuff where you're at now. I remember having this thought of, wow, how long is this going to go? Because I feel like we're going to need to skip here because I don't know how much more they can put into this. And then like 2 chapters later, it's like time skip. I was like, oh, well, what do you know? I felt like it was time, and it was.
Yeah. No, they do a really good job of, I would say you could maybe criticize that as being predictable, but I think especially these days, writers are a little too concerned with being unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like sometimes being predictable just means what you wrote made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where this falls. Because like there were times I couldn't predict what was going to happen. I didn't know if her dad was going to live or die.
I think predictability for pacing and structure is actually like a good thing.
Yeah.
Like you can play with it from time to time, but like people who like stories that spend too much time on something or too little time on something in order to be unpredictable and new and interesting, like you're losing something in doing that.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. It's got to be executed in a really good way in order to get away with that.
Yeah. Subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations is almost always a bad idea.
Yeah. All right. So, characters. I have a little bit more difficulty with this one because on the whole, I would say that most of the characters feel like they could be real people. This is, reading from the description here, easy to relate to and empathize and everything. However, I do feel like the Agonias specifically are way too over the top. They don't really feel realistic.
I was going to say, we have a villain problem.
Which is fun from time to time. I don't want to like drag it down because of that. I'm sitting between a 4 and a 5 here, but like if we're talking about realism, it's just way too over the top most of the time to be realistic.
I definitely think they lean. That's probably the most comic booky thing about the story. Like the one thing that I think if you were to turn it into, say, a live action drama, you'd have to tamp down on a bit.
Yeah.
Is the villains just being over the top evil. Like I think the closest we got to a really good, solid, dramatic story was the divorce.
Yeah.
The guy who was cheating, but even then they kind of took it over the top for the lulz. I think they really wanted you to hate that guy and they were afraid of him being at all sympathetic. Or maybe not afraid, but they just didn't want to. They didn't want him to be at all sympathetic.
I even feel like Visay, the awful uncle, like as he's a bit over the top, but there's a level of realism to him and his sons where it's like, oh, he's been at the top of the hierarchy his whole life. He doesn't have empathy or anything for other people because of that. There's a realism to that.
But you find yourself wondering, how can the grandfather be so smart and miss that?
Yeah.
So I think a 4 is reasonable. I think because we could think of an improvement right off the bat, which is tone it down just a smidge.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. It's a little disheartening. I don't think it really detracts from my love of this series. But like, it's a little disheartening because all of the good characters or even the neutral characters are done so well. Like they're so realistic. The interactions that they have, the conversations and everything is just like, oh yeah, these are real people. And then you get into some of the villains and it's like, are you a cartoon character? I mean, what?
Yeah. Well, and I think I think where we're hesitating between a 4 and a 5 is
actually cartoon characters.
They are, yeah. And but where we're hesitating is like there are definitely people out there who are going to disagree with us about that, because I think there are people who are big fans of this genre who read a lot of webtoons who are like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
I want the catharsis of an objectively evil person getting what's coming to them.
And that's fine. And like I said, I enjoy it. But when you are trying to rate something objectively, you have to keep those things in mind.
Well, and I'd throw out at this point, if you disagree with this, I don't think you're wrong. I think the rubric is not objective. It's an attempt at a little bit more objectivity than just gut check five stars. But it's
What
also
do you mean? The rubric is perfect and unerring and totally objective.
Well, I was actually talking to somebody on Threads about this. The rubric, I don't think it makes it objective, but it does make it consistent.
Yeah. It gives us a baseline, which is why I want other people to go on and use it. That's the reason I built a whole page for it that's interactive. You can go on there, you can click on things, and then you can compare with what we're looking at, and we can have conversations about like, oh, you gave this a 3 instead of a 4. Like, what was your thought process there? Like, that's what I want. Those are the kind of conversations I want to have in the Discord. Yeah, not that the current conversations are bad,
but yeah, I was just saying, like, the subjective part is that I value realistic characters.
Yeah.
And somebody else might not value that. That's okay.
Well, and here's the fact that they're unrealistic doesn't make this series bad. That's sort of the point that I've been getting at, is like, if they were so unrealistic that it made it bad, we wouldn't be even giving it a 4. We'd be giving it a 2, maybe. Like, it doesn't detract enough from what's going on. And like you said, for some people, they might actually want that to significantly affect the score that we're giving it.
Yeah. I think we did good there.
Yeah, we're pretty good at this.
$20,000 a month good at this.
I mean, I think I just made a promise on air, so just get there.
The Mary Trump Isekai, 20 grand.
I think that's more realistic than the Words About Books Yacht plan tier.
Oh.
People are actually going to get something out of it, as opposed to just knowing that some people are on a yacht somewhere.
Well, no, I think recently we promised Old Man in the Sea 2, Santiago's Revenge.
I am looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm already a Yacht Plan tier patron, so I can't do anything more. But anyway, so moving on to art competency. I'm going to give this a 4.
Yeah, I was between a 4 and a 5. I think I'm leaning 4 because I don't think there's anything that could. This is one where like originality would sort of put you over the edge.
Yeah, this falls into the category of what has Kermit been saying recently? Workmanlike, where it's like the artist is obviously a professional. Mm-hmm. It's top quality, but there's nothing new or interesting about it. It's the standard manhwa style done as well as possible, which is something we see a lot. And if you go back and listen to the older episodes, or even just look at the older posts with the rubrics, what you'll see is that in order for something to get over the hump to be a 5, you got to do something interesting with the art.
Well, and I think to an extent, if I don't know if the artist and the writer are different people, but
because it's a novel, remember?
Well, but I mean, like, if the artist is also in charge of planning the layout and adjusting the script from the novel. So if the artist is also in charge of the script, from a writing standpoint, the artist is doing a great job. And from an artistic standpoint, the artist is doing a super professional job. Mm-hmm. This isn't necessarily the kind of material that lends itself to getting a 5 in really either of the art categories. There's not a lot visually you can do with this. It's a bunch of people talking about money. So
Well,
they do everything they can, I think, which is why I was between a 4 and a 5. I can't think of a way they can bump this up to a 5 with this material. Maybe if you're talking about natural disasters and stuff.
It could have its own interesting style that gets away from the standard manhwa style. To me, that's what you need to do.
That same for me. But again, I do kind of wonder if like this is another point I could see somebody arguing with us on, where the rubric might not be set up in the best way. So I'd be interested in feedback on this
but I'm in my concept of like what a series have to do to be a 10 out of 10 to get 100 on the rubric. Like what would that be? And to me, it would have to have a new and interesting art style, and it would have to do that new and interesting art style very well.
In my brain, what I'm looking for in art, because I'm the one who wrote the rubric, what I'm looking for art is I'm comparing this to every other comic book I read. And I want this, like, compared to every other comic book I read, 4, super professional. If I saw it on a shelf, I would think it was good. I would think the person who did it was a professional artist and that they really knew what they were doing and that they made creative choices. And basically everything you would expect from an artist. I would not look at it and think, oh my God, I'm going to buy that just because it looks cool.
Right.
And that's what a 5 is to me. Oh my God, I'm going to buy that just because it looks cool. Now, I could see if you're somebody, though, who only reads webtoons and you only want it compared to other webtoons. Maybe
but I
my
think
category
even
is,
then, look at Mother's Contract Marriage.
That's true.
That's one
that's
gave
actually
a 5,
true. Yeah.
and that was doing something new and interesting, and it was doing it so well. I
think I'm comfortable with a 4.
Now, all that to say, a 4 versus a 5 in a single category isn't going to shift the score very much. I want people to understand that when we say that the art competency is a 4, that is high praise. Like, this artist is really good. They did this about as good as you can do without having a new and interesting style. So
the way, it's worth mentioning again. I think we mentioned it when we made the rubric, but the ideal is if you were perfectly satisfactory at everything, 3 is across the board.
Yeah.
When you're going higher than a 3, you're I guess more than satisfactory. You're good.
Right.
This is positive.
All of that said, for visual and stylistic flourish, I'm actually going to give it a 5.
Okay, walk me through that, because I was at about a 4.
I think 4 is fine. I, especially on looking back on things, looking at the beginning, this is one of the series where throughout the entire thing, they have paid a lot of attention to all of the details, the flourish, the backgrounds, the shadows, the composition, like just absolutely everything is done as well as it could be done, basically.
I did notice a lot of good transition work where there will be like a swirl of a cape, and then as you scroll, the shadow of that cape turns into the background of the next scene.
Yeah.
I could go up to a 5. I don't know how many I've ever actually given a 5 for this, because I think the first time I was blown away by that was Concubine Walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
And this gave me flashbacks of Concubine Walkthrough. So you know what? I think looking back, really thinking about the transitions, I can go with a 5. You know what I also appreciate? Somebody drew a horse.
Yeah. No, you get extra points for that.
Yeah. Please stop just, I don't know if you're tracing over something or copying an asset from somewhere else, but like, the horse work in this.
Listen,
My God.
tracing over a 3D model of a horse is fine. You just have to pay attention.
Sometimes you got to make it like shrink it to fit, you know?
Right. You got it. It has to fit in the scene. It has to look like an actual horse. It has to not have broken legs. Like the rider has to actually be sitting on top of it.
I'm gonna set perhaps a harsh standard that if you're gonna draw a horse, I recommend seeing one in real life once.
Yeah.
There's got to be a place you can do that.
So a favorite phrase of mine that I've used for many, many years, I don't know if I've said it yet on podcast, but and I'm actually not going to say it exactly the same way every time, but the concept of you never know how big something is until you're standing right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is true of just like, not just physical objects, but also concepts and things. I've often used it in the context of like working on a project, you know, like at work. Like until you're actually in it, you really don't know how long it's going to take. But it's also true of the real world. Like, do you actually know how big the Statue of Liberty is? Only by going and standing next to it can you really get a good idea of how big it is. And you know what? I guarantee that everyone who's listening to this who hasn't actually been there, you either think it's way bigger than it actually is or it's way smaller than it actually is. I guarantee it. And so I think this applies perfectly to horses because horses are at the same time way bigger than you think that they are, but also not as big as they keep making them in these series.
They draw first off, every horse is jacked like a Clydesdale.
Yeah.
And that is not what unarmored people ride around.
All right. Well, so moving on to the most important category, and the one where I think everybody already knows what we're going to say. Personal preference.
Even though I said I would change a thing, I'm going to say a 5.
Yeah, it's 5. I think wouldn't change a thing is more hyperbolic than anything.
Yeah.
Because nothing's perfect, right? It's more like, if nothing changed, would you have anything to say about it? And the fact is no.
I'm nitpicking.
Yeah.
Everything is a nitpick that I've brought up.
Can you think of improvements for a 4 in this category is more like, I really like this, but here's this thing that if they changed it, I'd like it more. Whereas where we're at now is, hey, these things could be different and it might be better, but it's not going to change how I think about it. I won't like it more if they do this. I'll just go, oh yeah, that was good.
I guess Tia could start a profit sharing thing.
She still might. We'll have to re-rubric this when it's over. If she becomes a full-blown socialist and takes down the empire and creates a collectivist society, then then we'll definitely, everything's a 5 then. I'll give it extra points in all the categories for that.
We should embrace a representative democracy.
Well, so this one will be a little bit more difficult. Recommendation strength.
I actually think it's a 5. I think you could get in. I think you could get in on this.
Okay.
I think the notion of somebody in the future having gone back in time is pretty approachable for a general audience. I think the Isekai thing is maybe still a little weird to people who aren't into anime and stuff, but I don't think it's that big of a hurdle because she doesn't know everything. Like, you don't have a weird, this isn't one of those, like, I got reincarnated and I got a cheat code, or I got, like, there's no, like, weird video gamey stuff. There's not a lot of magic even.
She actually did really terribly the first time around.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just a character drama, and I think the average reader is going to be able to relate to things like bullies and cheaters and divorce and business. And
I think I can agree with you on that. And maybe this still falls into a 5, but I think the fact that it literally starts off with isekai stuff, and it's really only the first couple panels, but like right away, it's like, hey, this is an isekai. I think that a general audience, you'd have to, when you're recommending it, you have to preface with read the first 3 chapters. Don't make a judgment until you read the first 3 chapters.
Well, and I'm going to say another thing. You have to be open, like with all of these. So for me to recommend, one of the biggest hurdles for me to realistically recommend this to anyone is, okay, you're reading a comic that's designed to be read on your phone.
I think everybody's fine with that these days. I might like that better.
I know people who would still be off put. And you're going to be reading something that's like translated from Korean, so there's going to be a little bit of weird stuff, and you're going to be there's those caveats of like, this is not, it's not as simple as me recommending a novel to somebody who has read novels. I could see there is somebody who has never read a webtoon before, doesn't know anything about this world. Few things I'd have to prepare you for, but I think if I did, and I think if you gave it an honest shot getting over the weirdness of the format, I think this would be a good intro one.
All right. I'm going to go with a 5 too. Mostly just because I can't have your score be higher than mine on this, because this is like one of my favorites.
I think we've agreed on everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have score parity, which means we've ended up at a 92.
92 out of 100.
Which is that?
If it's not the highest, it's up there.
I don't think it's the highest. It might be like number 2 or 3. But I do want to point out, this is important. The score on Bato is a 9.4.
Ooh, we got real close.
I think this might be the closest we've ever gotten to the community rating.
It's so nice when something is both good and popular.
Yeah, right.
Like a pumpkin spice latte, and I will die on that hill.
Let me see here real quick. I'm just going to glance over our previous ratings. Villainous Flips the Script, I gave a 92 as well. So there's parity there. Let's see. This might be your highest rating.
I tend to be... I tend to be a little more cynical.
As going far enough back that we don't have ratings for these. This is your highest rating.
I was thinking as I was reading this, like I've never had. And again, I mentioned that conversation I had with my therapist. I've never had like a strong emotional reaction to any of these before. I really thought there was a chance her dad might die. I'm saying that a lot. Like, I'm really emphasizing that, but like, I need you to understand how strange it is for me. Like, I read tons of stuff for the express purpose of reviewing it critically. Like, I write reviews, I do these podcasts. And so like, I've read, I don't know, hundreds of stories a year, and I'm pretty desensitized to a lot of them. And so like, when I tell you, I honestly did not know if her dad was going to die, and I didn't want him to. And I cared, and I was turning pages. I was like, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? And then when that kid shows up on that horse, I was like, this is epic. This is amazing. I love this. He showed up on the horse and he had the flowers. I was like, this is just, I mean, it's so stupid, but it's so perfect. Like there's, when you guys knew the flower might be a thing, why didn't you just harvest a bunch of them? Why did you do this in the most dramatic way possible? But I didn't care. So they got me. They got me in the end. Make me feel a feeling, and I'll be pretty generous.
We like to feel feelings,
but it's just so hard. Only one at a time, though. More than that, and I start to get uncomfortable.
Yes. Feelings are only one feeling at a time. Anger and sadness. What? No.
I can't be sad and angry. Like who am I? What do I fight or do I fight myself? I can't do both.
What if I told you you can?
Is it possible to learn this power?
It's not a story your therapist would tell you. All right. Well, there you have it. I think I guess we can call this the highest rated thing we've ever had, right?
Yeah. It's ongoing, though, so maybe they'll just totally blow it.
Wait a minute. Where's Mother's Contract Marriage? What did we rate that?
I can't remember where that one lost points.
Hold on, I gotta find it.
We need an intern to make the heroin addiction wiki with all of our rubrics easily searchable.
That's weird. Apparently I didn't put the score up for Mother's Contract Marriage. Let me open up the document real quick. And that was over a year ago that we did that.
Dang.
Oh, it's not in here either. Well, that would be why I didn't post it. Hey, somebody go back and listen to that episode and tell me what we rated Mother's Contract Marriage. Anyway. So yeah, top rated. I think this is going to be hard to beat. I don't know if I have anything else on my list that would beat this. So,
well, then the audience is going to have to do their best.
But that said, next time they're not going to get a choice. You can come in the Discord and complain about this if you want, but Ben has a specific series he wants to cover for the next episode.
Oh, yeah, for October.
So
it's not an Otome Isekai. I hope that's okay.
I have no idea what it is. So
do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
okay. No, so I thought it would be fun since this is kind of like a shoujo podcast. I bought the hardcovers of the original run of the Poe clan, which is a founding shoujo manga from the 70s. It arguably it had a huge influence on shoujo and a huge influence on the BL type stuff. But for October, it's about a clan of vampires, which a young Edgar Poe is initiated into. And his friend Alan, who also becomes a Poe. You see what they did there. They become vampires and they have weird adventures. And it's very melodramatic and goth and high drama. So, and it's all about like it's very like Interview with a Vampire, but like quasi BL shoujo. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. It fits October. I haven't read it. I bought these. They're giant hardbacks. Now let's do it.
How long is it?
The original
Wikipedia page does not. It doesn't seem like it's just a running series. It seems like there's individual.
Yeah,
parts.
so that's what each chapter is like a weird short story.
Okay.
So you don't maybe if you can't find all of them, I'll see if I could find it on the interwebs to make sure you're reading the right one because they did re-release or they did a continuation recently, like in
2017.
Yeah. The artist is still going. She decided to make some more.
Let me see. Oh,
Uh,
well, that's, I don't think that's all, is it? No, that can't be all of it. Yeah,
I
we'll
want to
have to, we'll have
say
to figure out.
there's I don't know if there's a lot more than like 20 chapters or so. The original, they're longer chapters though. But I'll get you the details. I'll post them in Discord.
Yeah, this seems like not. Yeah, this isn't right. At least based on what I'm seeing on Wikipedia. So yeah, we'll have to figure that out. But
I've got the books, so I can double check whatever I find online. I'll
yeah,
verify that it's actually what I want you to read. But yeah, I thought it might be fun.
yeah. So we'll I don't know. Maybe we'll do something extra special for the one after that, and we'll give a little something special for the patrons since they don't get to vote this time. If any of our patrons have some idea of what they want to do, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's gonna do it for today. I think we've thoroughly covered this. We've thoroughly gushed for 2 hours about this series that is definitely, I'd say this is probably top 3 of my Otome isekais.
I'd agree.
Without
Say it's
without
actually
going
up there,
through my list.
up there in terms of manga I've read this year. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's not a lot of great stuff right now.
No, I was gonna say I haven't read a lot of ongoing series that I'm super into. So of the ongoing series I've been reading, this is probably also top 3.
Yeah. But we're getting 3 new series in Shonen Jump in the next 3 weeks. So
Don't they have a new one every week at this point?
no. Because My Hero ended, Jujutsu Kaisen has ended. They axed Kokuto Necromance. So yeah, there's 3 new ones coming in the next 3 weeks. Make sure you're subscribed so you can hear Shonen Jumping the Gun. We're gonna do our best to get those episodes out like the week that the new series drops. So make sure you check that out. Hey, maybe the next big one is going to be in this batch. You never know.
Some editor certainly hopes.
It certainly seems like Kagurabachi is the next big one. I didn't go back and listen to our episode on that, but someone told me that we rated it very highly. So I'm going to take credit for pegging that one.
You guys like that one.
The first chapter is actually the worst one. So there you go.
I was going to say I read the first chapter and I remember thinking you guys definitely liked it more than I did.
You should probably check out the rest of it. It's actually really, really good.
Okay, maybe I will.
Maybe that'll get you back into shonen. I thought I got out, but they keep pulling me back in.
It's going to be tough. I think My Hero is a good stopping point, but I am aging rapidly. So that might be part of my problem.
You talk to me when you've got gray in your beard. I've got a couple.
I got a couple. I tweeze them. I'm vain.
I'm embracing it. I'm rapidly approaching Santa Claus. So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. This was a lot of fun. I hope everybody had fun with this one. And like I said, read this series, go rubric it, and jump on our Discord and tell us how your rubricing went. I really want to. We haven't really got to compare and contrast to other people for the rubric. Just the two of us. So still waiting on that. Well, before we go, as always, I want to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart's online retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. All kinds of stuff you can't get outside Japan. Our listeners can check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. And of course, like I said, we want to hear from you. So hit us up on social media. You can find all the links for that on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. The website has the episodes as individual posts up there. So if you want, you can leave comments there. But also, we've got the Discord, like I said, so you can jump on the Discord and chat with us. You can also just send an email to isekai-sensei-sama@gmail.com. I haven't gotten one of those in a while, but there's a bunch of different ways you can chat with us, so make sure to check that out. As I mentioned, we also have a Patreon. Most of the time, our supporters get perks like getting to vote on what series we're covering on heroin addiction. Just not this time. But there's also other perks that you can get there, such as bonus episodes, which we haven't had one in a while, but we may have recorded one last night, but that won't come out for like a month and a half, unfortunately. But we also released the high quality stereo version of the podcast early up there. So if you want to get these early, most of the normal podcasts you get like a day or two early, but recently Shonen Jumping the Guns have been like 4 or 5 days early. So if you want to get in on it early, that's how you can do that. And of course, we want to hear what perks people want. So we'd like to offer more to our patrons. So just let us know what you want to see. And of course, we got to shout out our patrons. So at our Reincarnator tier, we've got Moon and Cake Dwarf. At our Merchant tier, we've got Kill Hour. And at our Commoner tier, we've got Rena. So we want to thank thank you so much to all our patrons. And Ben, the free tier doesn't count, so.
I don't get a shout out.
As I said, make sure you're subscribed because you want to check out all of the other series on our feed. We actually have something new coming, probably later in September, but you're going to want to check that out. So I will. I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of a hint here. I actually recorded with Shonen Flop recently for one of their Patreon specials. And on that episode, I told everybody what's going to be coming. So if you want to know, you can go join their Patreon and listen to that episode so you can hear about what we've got coming up. How
even I don't
can
know.
you get?
So even I don't know. I might have to subscribe.
And of course, as always, if you can't get enough about Ben talking about reading stuff, you can check out his other podcast, Words About Books, which I guess we're in Dune month again right now.
Yeah.
Even though we did Dune month earlier in the year, but
we wanted to get it over with. It's the end of Dune. If you've read all 6 Frank Herbert Dune books, which almost no one has. I mean, not almost no one. They're very popular books, but like relative to the number of people who have read Dune.
I talk authoritatively about Dune because I've listened to the Words About Books episodes on Dune.
You can do that. That's an option. Your opinions. More people should have my opinions, I guess. Stump speech for me.
Nobody's called me out on it yet, so maybe just no one else has read it carefully enough.
No, the next thing we're doing, talking about Tolkien's back. So that might be one.
Yeah, for everybody who's not into Dune and doesn't want to listen to those episodes, talking about Tolkien is still going on.
Yep, we just started Fellowship of the Ring. The next thing we'll be doing after Dune is also kind of niche. The William Gibson unproduced screenplay for Alien 3.
Interesting. Okay. That's not a book.
It was turned into a book. That's how it was released.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a book, there's a novel version of it, and there's an audio drama on Audible that they produced.
So it's not just like pages full of like stage direction and stuff.
No.
They actually adapted it.
Yeah, the audio drama adapts it. It's kind of I'll give you the spoiler. Like it turns out that the Alien franchise is kind of a visual experience. If you don't see the aliens, like they don't have a lot of dialogue, so it's not very scary. But
When the Jaws novel went ba-dump,
yeah,
ba-dump, 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 it didn't have the same impact.
but I guess if you're one of the many people who hated Aliens 3, the William Gibson screenplay is touted as a better alternative. So we explore that.
Aliens 3, that's not Prometheus, right?
That's not Prometheus. I think that's the one with Ripley and the human hybrid alien.
Oh, that's right. That's after she was supposed to be dead, but then they brought her back and she was like the ultimate badass then or something like. That's the one where she did a behind the back.
She throws the basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. Which she actually did in real life. And everybody on set was like, oh my God.
I wouldn't mess with Sigourney Weaver. She's like 6.5 feet tall.
I think it was, Ron Perlman was the one in that scene with her. And his reaction to that was real. Which, I don't know if you've heard this. Apparently, real reactions is a thing the Alien franchise is very proud of. In the first movie, there are multiple scenes where they didn't tell the cast what was happening. And so like the chest burster scene, they didn't tell them that was what was going to happen. And so when it happened, those were real reactions.
I did not know that. That's actually pretty cool.
Terrifying to work on, though.
People kept coming back. I mean, Sigourney Weaver kept coming back.
Yeah. Well, as I said, thank you all for listening. Hope you had a good time. Hope you come back for more. Now, if you'll excuse me, my manhwa plug is texting me. I have a supplier issue I have to go deal with.
'Cause I'll see you again.
So did you get through it all?
I did not get through it all. I was reading right up until the very moment you sent me the link. I am at the beginning of the debutante stuff.
Okay, let's see.
I'm around like 104.
Yeah.
Does it get to a point? Is there like another age skip? That's what I was worried.
Debutante is...
She's 12.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, then there's a time skip right after that then.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, I wish I could have gotten to that, but
Yeah.
I was afraid that was coming up because I was like, oh, we're getting towards the, because like it was about as long as the like childhood arc.
Yeah, they go right to I think 18, or it might actually be
Shit.
20. But yeah.
Oh shit! So does he go to the academy then?
Should have read it.
No. No, I was going right up until the line on this one.
When you were like, "Oh, I can read it all in one weekend. It'll be fine."
I miscalculated that.
Like,
I was
you
like,
say so.
No, that really was. I didn't expect the chapters to be like full. They're like full manga. There's a lot of text in this.
I mean, I think it's physically possible to read it all in 2 days, but I don't think you would actually want to do that.
No, it was. I wasn't expecting it to be like reading 15. I was expecting like 150 webcomics for some reason, but like this was actually like 15 volumes of manga.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
It's this is a real one. I was looking on the fandom wiki and they have her name as Florentia, which makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But on top of that, Lombardi, and you have her grandfather Lulak, right?
Yeah.
On the wiki, it says Rulak, which I think
Okay.
makes less sense. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I guess we'll go with the official. I noticed some stuff in the official that was like, it's very obviously not being translated by a native English speaker.
You know what's funny? I don't even notice that stuff anymore. It's like, I mean, I read so much fan translated stuff that there's so many times where I read words, but my brain just automatically makes it make sense, which is, good and bad. It's good because I can just, enjoy stuff, but it's also bad because I need to talk about that stuff and I don't even notice it. So,
I got a bunch of those to edit today.
well, you can read the rest of I Shall Master This Family while you're doing that. So that when this
probably
comes
will.
out on Monday, you can talk to people about it on the Discord.
Be all over it. I am interested to see like the grown up Ferentia, and because I haven't been looking at the cover really. I saw like a small thumbnail. So that'll be fun. I mean, I know we see grown up Ferentia, but with her like short hair and
Well, I mean, if you look at the prologue, the difference between how they look in the prologue and how they look now after the time skip, it's almost identical.
I have a
So-
confession. I never read the prologue.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because they always just seem like advertisements for the series. It's like, I'm going to read it. I'm not, it's like watching the trailer.
Well, they're literally like, "You're the matriarch of the Lombardi family." She's like, "Yep." It's like, okay.
That's why I never read the prologue.
I guess you did it. Good job.
This is how I became the greatest hero of all time. Shut up, Deku. No, you didn't.